Welcome to How to Make It in the City on WBAI in New York 99.5 FM. This is a show where we explore both the practical and spiritual aspects of making it. This show is for artists, entrepreneurs, dreamers, and visionaries who are determined to end the cycle of working soul-crushing jobs just to pay bills. This is where we learn how to live our mission while making a great living. This is where we learn how to do well by doing good. This is where we learn how to step into our divine calling while entering a space of financial freedom and abundance. I am your host, Ama Karikari-Yawson. In August of 2015, I quit my six-figure salary day job as a corporate lawyer to step into my purpose of healing through storytelling. I now travel the country performing my stories, such as my debut book, Sune's Gift, while facilitating presentations and training sessions for schools, universities, governments, and corporations. Loved ones, it has been quite a bumpy ride, and I have a long way to go. Let's figure out how to make it in this city together. Welcome, loved ones. So our goal as entrepreneurs, artists, leaders, and visionaries is to create positive change. We aim to make the world a better place through our social movements, products, services, books, films, media, and other works. But I have a question for you. Can more orgasms make the world a better place? If individuals feel more sexually fulfilled, will we be collectively happier? Will our world become more harmonious and peaceful? Our guest today believes that she is making the world a better place, one orgasm at a time. Carlin Ross is an attorney, entrepreneur, and sex educator. She's the editor-in-chief of the site DodsonandRoss.com. She's the co-leader of the Dodson and Ross Bodysex workshops and certification program, and she is the president of the Betty Dodson Foundation. Her move from law to sex got her on the front page of the New York Times, and her very own vulva was broadcast on national television in Norway. She has appeared on the Sharon Osbourne show, CNN, MSNBC, and Dateline. She's also been on radio shows such as Afternoon Advice on Playboy Radio. And now she can say she's been on WBAI, right? She has been featured in national publications including Marie Claire and Esquire. Most recently, she released her ebook, How to Make a Girl Come. Cosmo gave it a positive review. She's most happy at the park with her son Grayson and her husband Steve. Welcome, Carlin Ross.
Thank you, Alma. You really got everything. Wow.
Well, you have such an interesting story. There's a lot to get in, but I'm glad I did. So, okay, now you've had an interesting life in being an attorney and now a sex educator. Let's start with where it all began. Where did you grow up, and what did you think you were going to be when you were a child?
I grew up on the South Shore of Long Island.
Oh, where? What town?
West Islip.
Okay, great. I'm on the South Shore in Freeport, so, South Shore girls represent. Good. Okay.
Yeah, we're neighbors.
Okay, so you grew up in West Islip. What did your parents do for a living? What was it like?
Okay, so my parents are teachers, and everything's pretty normal. And then in the 80s, when the moral majority swept America, my parents got swept into this, kind of bizarre local Long Island religious cult. And like most cults, women have no standing and girls are property. And then all the things that happen to women when you're in that environment happened. And I guess what it was always that I was responsible for male lust. And I was not supposed to have sex till I was married. And it was just this focus always on women and sexuality that I thought, why? It seems so natural to me that it kind of piqued my interest of why they're so focused on controlling women by controlling their sexuality.
Wow. Okay, so now you, at this point, when your parents were in this cult and you were receiving all of these messages to make sure you abstained from premarital sex, how old were you? This was when you were like a teenager?
No, it probably started when I was like 9, 10.
Wow.
And eventually, you end up homeschooled. You end up with no television and no popular culture. All the same things that we hear again and again in the media.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they kind of isolate you and they withhold information. And it had kind of the opposite effect for me. It made me so curious and so interested. And so I guess my rebellion was I wanted to become educated and I wanted to break out and I wanted to know, why was sex such a sin?
Very interesting. Okay.
And it wasn't a sin for men. Right?
Oh, really? So you felt
women.
in the same cult they weren't telling all of the boys to make sure that they didn't have sex before marriage?
No. It was up to the girl.
Okay.
You're responsible for lots. The same thing with when they do all of their wardrobe restrictions. You see it even in public high schools. It's always on the girls. They don't focus on the boys. Interesting.
And so, do you have any brothers, Carlin?
I have an older brother.
You have an older brother. And so he was experiencing this with you, but he was not experiencing this stress on restriction and making sure that your sexuality is, I guess, what should be the word, restrained until marriage. Your brother felt none of this.
No, I mean, the boys are encouraged because boys have to be strong. And boys are expected to desire sex and masturbate and try to have sex with girls. And it's up to the girls to say no and abstain.
Okay, and so, and at no point did you feel, what is the word? At no point did you feel as if you wanted to conform? At any point were you thinking, okay, so my goal is to stay chaste until marriage?
No. I knew I was always just sexual, and kids are. I have a 3-year-old. You're sexual, like in utero. You masturbate in utero. You come out. You touch your genitals. It feels good. Sex is like any other, milestone for children, and it's natural and it's healthy. So for me, I remember a couple of times, you'd always pray before you go to sleep, and I'd be like, God, please help me not have the dirty thoughts, because I was just a pervert, perverted. I was a natural girl, and I'd be like, why am I licking my teeth when I see Brian Cerise coming to past my house? And why do I have these horrible thoughts?
You're praying to God not to have these thoughts. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Please release me. And it's just I was a pervert, and not even a pervert. I don't even want to say that.
You were just. I'm going to say this. I think you were in tune with sexual energy from an early age. Can we put it that way? You were in tune, because not everyone necessarily is in tune with that energy, especially, I would say, certainly I know girls who are not in tune with that at an early age, but you were one of the lucky ones who was definitely in tune. Okay, great. So now, how does becoming a lawyer come into the picture? So you're there in this cultish society in West Islip. They're telling you, keep your legs closed, keep your mind clean. Where does the law come in?
Well, okay, so the next one piece of that is, they limit education for girls. So, they would give my brother a language and they would give me shorthand because I was going to get, my great pink ghetto job, right? So, and for me, education became like a tool, and I saw, lawyers righted wrongs. Lawyers knew how to work the system. If I was a lawyer, I would, Lady Justice, I would have my sword, and I could protect myself and others.
Great.
So that was the interest, is it, and it was, I guess, again, I think it was like a rebellion. So when I was about 14, 15, the state did come in because I was being home taught. Mm-hmm. And they took me to a local high school, and they gave me all these standardized tests. And, if you don't have a peer group, you don't know if you're smart. And I placed above college on all my grades, and they were like, you're really smart.
Wow.
And so I had a little chip on my shoulder. I was like, oh, now I know. I'm above average. So the local high school, I got a guidance counselor, and she's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, all I have to do, you can't take me out of the home. My parents love me. They think they're doing the right thing, but what are we going to do? Foster care? Forget it. So I just need a way to prove that I'm not, socially deficient, that I can compete and I can do well. So the local university at Stony Brook had a young scholars program, and I got in. And so I started to take college classes on campus. So what was funny is I went from not being allowed to go to the local high school that my
going
mom
to the
would drop
local
me
college.
off.
Wow.
Oh, my God. My mind was blown. I would just sit in the library stacks, and I would read every book I could get my hand on. And for me, like, diversity, seeing people that looked different and smelled different and ate different food and had different ideas, for me, I just, like, it was amazing. I just lapped it up. I was like, I want more. You know, that was how I reacted to it. The restriction and the repression, it was like, wow, I'm free.
But your parents were open to the program in Stony Brook because this was for your own educational benefit. It was prestigious that you got into the Young Scholars program. Okay, great.
And what it was saying is them homeschooling me, because they were teachers, I was learning more.
Yes.
So it became status and, like, bragging rights. So
Absolutely.
they would let me go.
Absolutely. But the thing is, homeschooled kids usually do well. I mean, when I see children who go to school at 15, usually they're homeschooled because you're not wasting all this time on teachers disciplining other kids. And, of course, the curriculum is tailored to you. So I'm not surprised that you were and plus, your parents were actually teachers. So it wasn't like you were just being homeschooled by a layperson. You were being homeschooled by professional teachers. Okay, great. So you're at Stony Brook. You're loving all the diversity. At that point, do you read a law book and say you want to become a lawyer? Like, what happens?
Well, I think at that time, court TV just started, and I'd watch these trials, and I loved the closing argument. And it was, you know, these lawyers were righting wrong. Right? Because the way our system works, I mean, I was just like a constitutional law groupie. I would, you know, read the Federalist Papers and, like, masturbate. That was just who I was.
Wow.
You know, I just got off on it. The whole idea, the whole concept. And I had this big crush on Alexander Hamilton.
Oh, my goodness.
So, I know, it's crazy. But this is what I was doing. So it was like law, orgasms, and then this notion of, like, civil rights, fundamental rights. For women, because, you know, not that men aren't abused in the culture, because they are, especially men of color and minorities. But I just felt like, wow, you know, we're oppressing women in this systematic way. Because, you know, in the cult, I saw it, and I really felt like once I got out into the real world, it would be better.
Yes.
And what I realized, it was actually a little worse, because now I was objectified in a way that I wasn't before. Okay,
so meaning at Stony Brook they weren't fellow college students because you were not a college student. Were the college students unaware that you were 15 and pursuing you sexually?
Kind of, and like professors saying little things like in the religious cult, if you played by the rules and you were a good girl, you were respected.
Yes.
No one would say and do certain. So now all of a sudden, like, you know, you're doing something and you're dropping off a paper and someone, like, slides their arm past your boob and cops a feel. Like, we all been there.
Yes.
But for me, it was very shocking.
Okay.
Because I thought they would listen to me and think I was smart. And they were just like, oh, you're cute, you know.
Okay, great. So all of this makes you more interested in the law because you are experiencing oppression and repression in this religious cult and society. Additionally, you're seeing that even out in the world, women are sexually objectified in, I would say, professional or educational situations. So is all of this really inspiring you to want to become an attorney?
It was, and that was my first job. I worked at the Civil Rights Bureau in the Attorney General's office when Bacco was in office, and I loved it. I mean, we put Braille in the back of cabs, and we went after the Wall Street for sexual harassment, and I wrote the handbook on sexual harassment for corporations and how you need to talk about things. So I was, like, on fire.
Wow.
It was very exciting. And then I kind of got into technology because I was kept from all of that. And I think that's when I thought it could be something more. Because for the first time with the internet, you had a platform for communication. Because, you know, you'll never get sex ed in school.
Yes.
You'll never be able to talk to young girls about birth control. You know, but you could do it online. You could have a voice online. So it was like in the back of my head, kind of always.
Okay, now question.
Was the first thing. Yeah.
What was your family life like at this point? So, okay, you do this Stony Brook Young Scholars program. I'm assuming you then go to college. a little
Yeah.
early. What age were you when you matriculated into college?
Oh, I was like 17 and I matriculated.
Okay, so you start college, like, about a year ahead of time. You go on to law school. At this point, were your parents excited? Were they like, oh, we just raised this super smart daughter? Were they hesitant because you were kind of going into the secular world? What was going on in your family, given all of your, what we would call education success versus their cultish mindset?
Well, they were excited about the law. I know it was very exciting. My mom was really behind it. She loved that. I came from a very kind of matriarchal family.
Yes.
So, that was great. But then I became sexually active. And I was stupid enough to think, oh, I'm just going to be honest and let everyone know.
Oh, my.
And then, that was the big mistake.
So you literally just told your parents, who you knew were very into abstinence before marriage, hey, I'm having sex. You just told them that?
Yeah, I just
okay.
Thought, if how you always tell your kids, like, if you're honest,
yes.
Will happen.
Oh, yes. I tell that to my kids. You're right. Okay.
So I kind of bought it, and I just said, I just want you to know. And mind you, like, my brother wasn't a virgin.
Yes.
And my family kind of knew. So I thought, maybe in this, and then by that point, they had kind of gotten out of the cult and were a little more mainstream with the religion. And I thought, I'm going to do it. And that was stupid. And so then I had the scarlet letter on my chest.
Oh, no.
Because now you're a fallen, you're dirty. Everything we do with the whole virginity myth and slut stigma that we do even in secular families to girls. You cannot have sex for fun.
Oh, no. Okay, and so they were open about their disapproval, but were they just like, hey, go get baptized again so you can be born again and fresh? I mean, that's a solution many Christians use.
Not really. They kind of like said it in so many words, it was better if I left.
Oh, no. Wait a minute,
yeah,
hold up. Better that you left the house or better that you left the church?
Left the house because it was like shameful. Because here's the thing. They had told me the world was a horrible place. And then I went out and I succeeded. And I was getting all these A's and everyone was taking notice. And I was having things published in journals. So I was a problem because I had a younger sister.
And they didn't want you to be a bad influence on her, so to speak. So they wanted you to leave the house. At this point, were you in law school? And were you commuting? Okay.
It was my junior year of college.
Okay.
And I had gotten a job waiting tables and tending bar, and I was making a lot of cash. Because let me tell you, when you're a young woman and you have aspirations of going to law school, it works well for tips.
Yes. So you would tell the patrons that, oh yeah, I'm a college student, I hope to go to law school, and they're like, oh, we gotta give her a good tip. She wants to go to law school, and we want to see nice, cute female lawyers like her. Okay, and so your parents tell you to leave. So then at this point, your junior year, you get an apartment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I got a new car, and I had this little cute red Celica, and I was zipping all over town, and I was like, yeah. Figured out life. See ya.
You were like, yay me, go me, figured it out without you. Okay.
And you kicked me out, kind of, right, in a nice way, and all of a sudden everything's coming up roses. I'm good,
Okay, this is great. Okay. But you still talk to them on the phone, but you're not in the house because they don't want you to be a negative influence on your little sister. Okay, exactly. They don't want her engaging in premarital sex like you and being too, what they would say in Christian circles is being in the world. It was like you were in the world.
Yes, they will always say that. They'll say, you're worldly. We're not. You understand things that we don't. But what's fascinating about it is my sister came to me for birth control.
I'm sure.
And I was sexually active at 16.
Oh, wow.
And because I had to talk with her and I told her what her options were, she didn't lose her virginity until she was 18. This whole idea, if we tell them nothing, they'll wait. It's the opposite. You give them information, then they wait, and they do it when they're ready, and they do it in a nice environment, and they have fun, and maybe have an orgasm.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Okay, so now at this point, you are a lawyer. We've been jumping up and down because your story so fascinating. I wanted to really find out what your family was saying, because that's kind of important to me. These are your parents and your siblings. So now let's get back to, you finish college, you go on to law school, you're working through it, you're making your own money, then you're working at the Civil Rights Bureau and you're an attorney and you love it. You feel like you're making change. You're helping to write sexual harassment legislation. You feel very woman identified and your legal career reflects that woman identification. Where does being a sex educator come in?
Okay, so then I was working at the AG's office, and one of the other attorneys,
Pardon me, we have to tell the audience, AG's Attorney General. So you're working at the State Attorney General?
Yeah.
Okay.
State Attorney General in New York, downtown. And one of the women there, who's also an attorney, her husband had started an internet service provider. So this is the 90s, and they had just done a couple of capital raises. And she said, I think you're going to be great to be general counsel.
Great.
So I got this job. I had I was like 24, 25.
Wow.
And I'm like...
A general counsel at a startup. Love it. This is great.
No, it's great. So we raised $1 billion on Wall Street. We built this like OC13 huge fiber, network with 3 data centers, all from San Jose to New York and then to Europe and London. And it's fast. Our biggest client, our bread and butter, is Penthouse.
Okay.
Because we managed all their video. And this is before anyone was doing any kind of online video, anything. I mean, they were making tens of millions of dollars a month. It was like crazy. They had a videoplex. So that's when the Communications Decency Act came out, the first kind of effort to regulate media online, speech online. And so I got it in my head that I was going to argue before the Supreme Court on some kind of obscenity charge or something and push, my civil rights kind of bend, like push the notion of First Amendment and speech online, and to see what's going on now is kind of crazy because back then we would have these debates, of how it was going to be. So I think that was the beginning of like sex video online, sex art, sex education. It kind of got under my skin because the first representation of sexuality, the only dialogue we have in the culture is pornography. That's it. And most of it caters to men.
Yes.
And most of it caters to our basic desires. It's not very helpful. It's not very,
sensual. It's not very holistic.
No.
Yes. It's not holistic. It's not sensual. Okay, but you get into your mind that, hey, you are general counsel of an internet service provider during the wild, wild west of the internet. This is like the 90s. You are weary or you suspect that at some point there are going to be obscenity charges because this is a new terrain and it wasn't that regulated, and you're over there dealing in pornography basically through being an internet service provider. Okay, and so does that come to fruition at some point? No.
No.
Okay.
We just made a lot of money and I traveled the world, and then it was like, okay, I got to the top too fast, right? Maybe if it had taken me a decade to carve out my legal career, and I was like, I want to do something else. I want to do something for women. And I just started preaching this idea of a lifestyle brand, and we could talk about everything and women from, menstruation. No one talks to you about that. Menopause. No one talks to you about that. Good sex, orgasms, birth, pregnancy, relationships, all the stuff that we leave shrouded in myth.
Yes.
And each girl has to learn her own, on her own. And what happens? You just get kind of knocked around.
Sure. You waste a lot of time. You waste a lot of time. You waste a lot of time just not knowing. Okay. So this is something that's just in your mind that you believe that there needs to be more, let's say, women's sexuality and health education, because you brought up a lot of topics from menstruation to orgasms. I mean, there's a lot going on there. So you get in your mind that there has to be something like that harnesses the power of the internet. Okay, it's just in your mind. How does it come to fruition?
Okay, so I'm talking about it all the time and talking about it. And I had just met Candida Royale. I don't know if you know who she is. She's since passed in the last few years, but she was doing feminist pornography since the 90s, a former porn star, but she was just so amazing and authentic and legitimate. And I had met her at a party. And so I was... And
sorry, repeat her name, because if we didn't know her, we should know her.
Yeah.
You said her name was... What's her name?
Candida Royale.
Candida Royale. Okay, Candida like the yeast. Okay, Candida Royale.
I know. I always thought it was a bad name because it's a poor name. But she was doing real feminist pornography from a woman's perspective.
Okay.
And we met at a cocktail party. I'm pitching. She had a woman from the New York Times, a reporter, called her because she was doing a piece about professional women moving into the sex industry because of the anonymity of the internet. It's not like you had to have a brick and mortar retail store that people in your town would pass in their cars and see you. You know what I mean? So
sure.
Was it going to change women's behavior? So the reporter called me because she called Candace and said, I know a young woman that's a lawyer and she's thinking of making a move. So I meet her and I kind of knew from our talk that I kind of gave her an angle for the article because I just said, look, for the first time, women can go online and search by sex keywords for information without judgment. Mm-hmm. So not only can I sell something to them or offer them something, but they can come and be a consumer without anyone playing the slut card. I'm like, it's going to change everything. You're going to see women now consuming more, quote, quote, adult products. You know, so and in the course of that, learning about their orgasm, their bodies, you know what I mean? It was going to change something. It was going to shift something in the culture. So the reporter loves everything. She's writing feverishly. She gives me an email, tells me when the piece is going to run. I get the New York Times, and I'm looking. I can't find it. I'm looking in the Metro section.
Wow.
I'm looking.
You can't find it because it's on the front page.
Yes. So I flip it over, and it says, women tailor the sex industry to their eyes. My picture and the first words of the article are, Carlin Ross plotted a new career. And it was
but hold up. At this point, had you plotted a new career? You were just talking about it, right?
No, it was all just talk.
What?
Happy talk. Yeah.
This is amazing.
So now...
Okay.
Oh, no, I was outed. And I remember I called my mom to kind of tell them, like, it was happening.
Yeah.
And she said, I went to the local stores and I bought every copy I could get my hands on.
So that no one else would buy it?
Yes.
Oh, no.
I thought it was like, she's going to keep them forever. No. She was, like, burning them in the backyard.
Oh, no, so that no one could see. Because really, it would have been that disgraceful that her daughter wanted to be a sex educator.
Oh, my God. To go from law to sex, you become like a little bit of a social pariah because it's like you're rejecting wealth and prestige.
But I mean, I don't understand why. I mean, some of the richest people in the world are in the sex industry. The porn industry is a mega bill. So you're not necessarily sacrificing wealth for sure. I mean, there are lawyers who make $50,000 a year. There are porn stars who make hundreds of thousands or millions, right?
Well, you make money in porn if you're going to do sex positive, information and education. That's a little trickier.
Okay. All right.
It's not following the male.
It's not paradigm. Following the male trajectory. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So your mother.
Market.
There's not. Okay. But no, I mean, but there has to be a market. I mean, there must be. When female Viagra was about to come out, I mean, many women were buzzing. I mean, it wound up being a flop.
Yep.
But the excitement around it was huge because, I think I remember reading a book somewhere. This was by Manchuk Chia, and he said basically, you never will meet a man who's never had an orgasm. It's rare that you could find a man on the face of the earth who's never had an orgasm at an adult age, but you can find plenty of women. Yep. So it seems as if it's a right market. But anyway, getting back to the story, your mom is worried. She's buying every New York Times in the town to make sure no one else sees it. And you have been put out there in an article as being a sex educator when at the moment you really were not a sex educator. No. So then what do you do?
So,
what do you do next?
Okay, so then I did a wave of TV interviews and I kind of like fudged my way through it with my best instincts because I'm like a feminist, I'm orgasmic. So I was like, but then I realized I have to learn. I have stuff to learn. So I started just reading everyone's books, all the bestsellers and all the big names, including Betty Dodson, right?
Yes.
Sex for One. And what I did is I just started a podcast in iTunes, and I had 2 USB port microphones on my laptop, and I'm like, let me read the book, and then I'll schedule an interview, and I'll interview them, So that way I'm learning at the same time I'm creating media.
Brilliant.
You know, and that's how I met Betty.
Wonderful.
That's how our partnership
So now at this point, were you still working at the Attorney General's office when this article broke?
No. When the article broke, I stopped practicing law because I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do something.
Oh, so you were in transition. So you were ripe for transition because you already had no day job. You were living off of your savings and you were taking time to figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is why you were networking with Candida Royale and other people in the space.
Exactly. Because, you know, when you get on the front page of the New York Times, every cover goes into the Library of Congress. And I felt like, okay, I did something that's now a part of history. Now I got to follow it up with something.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, this is incredibly fascinating. We want to know more, but we are going to take a slight, short musical break because I know you want to find out more. So give us one moment for a break, please.
Did last night. I came home, say, around 2:45, still so high, hypnotized in a trance from this body, so buttery brown and tantalizing. You would have thought I needed help from this feeling that I felt. So shook, I had to catch my breath. Oops, there goes my shirt up over my head. Oh my. There goes my skirt dropping to my feet. Oh my, ooh, some kind of touch caressing my legs. Oh my, ooh, I'm turning red. Who could this be? I tried and I tried to avoid, but this thing was happening. Swallow my pride, let it ride and parted, but this body felt just like mine. I got worried, I looked over to the left, a reflection of myself. That's why I couldn't catch my breath. Oops, there goes my shirt up over my head. Oh my, oops, there goes my skirt dropping to my feet. Oh my, ooh, some kind of touch caressing my legs. Oh my, ooh, I'm turning red. Who could this be? I looked over to the left.
I was looking so good I couldn't reject myself.
I looked over to the left.
And I was feeling so good I had to touch myself.
I looked over to the left.
I was eyeing my thighs, but a pecan brown.
I looked over to the left.
Coming out of my shirt and then the skirt came down.
Oops, there goes my shirt up over my head. Oh my, oops, there goes my skirt dropping to my feet. Oh my, ooh, some kind of touch caressing my legs. Oh my.
Welcome back. You are listening to How to Make It in the City on WBAI in New York City, 99.5 FM. You just heard Oops, Oh My by Tweet featuring Missy Elliott. We are continuing our discussion with attorney turned sex educator Carlin Ross. So during the first half, Carlin told us about this magic that happened in which she just expressed her goal of being a sex educator and she wound up on the front page of the New York Times, much to her mother's chagrin, pardon me. But this is amazing. And then created a podcast in which she interviewed sex educators. And one of the people she interviewed is the famous Betty Dodson. Betty Dodson is now approaching 90 years old, but for the past 70 years of her life, practically, she has been helping women achieve orgasm. Her one of her most famous books is Sex for One. She's a real feminist and sex education pioneer. So, Carlin, tell us about meeting Betty through your interview.
Oh, it was great. I showed up a day early because I had 2 interviews and I flipped them because I was so excited to interview Betty. I thought she was in San Francisco and I Googled feminist
Yes.
And then East Coast, and she was there, and I'm like, she lived 20 minutes from my apartment.
Wow.
I'm like, no way. So I show up, and Betty answers the door because she'll let any woman up.
Yes.
And I do the same thing. Women, you got it. Anything you need. And it's summer, and she's in a T-shirt, and it's Rosie the Riveter holding a Hitachi magic wand. And she had cut out the sleeves, so it's like a tank top, and she had bike shorts on, black bike shorts. And she came in, I sat down, and I plug in my USB port mics, which really impressed her.
Yes.
Because, for her, I mean, it's a big deal. And I just opened the interview with, okay, I'm going to read some quotes attributed to you. And I want to know, did you say it? And do you still feel that way? And she was just kind of bowled over because most people sit down with her and say, how did you get into masturbation?
Yeah.
The same kind of pat,
Yes.
questions. And so halfway through the interview, she asked me, she's like, so are you good with technology? And I'm like, oh, yeah, my background is in the internet, and I'm really into blah, blah, blah. Can you work a camera? Oh, yes. So she takes her hand and reaches it across the table and says, we're going into business. Shake on it right now.
Amazing. Because this is exactly what she needed. I mean, she has all of this wealth of information, but her technology skills, given the fact that she's 89 years old, are not so good. And she doesn't have a daughter or any niece, I guess, that she was handing over the family business to. So you literally were like a godsend to her.
Yeah. And I was looking for someone, right, with an established brand who was authentic in sexuality, which is hard to find.
Yes.
And a feminist. And someone who could kind of shepherd me. So it was the perfect marriage.
Amazing. We need to talk about you and the law of attraction because I need to, follow some of your footsteps. One, the fact that you are verbalizing your dreams so consistently, and then you just manifested this amazing opportunity to work with someone who fit perfectly because she had the experience, the knowledge, the reputation, but you had the legal background and the technology orientation. This is amazing. Okay, and so what year was this? Was this 2004?
Yeah, this is like 2004. And in the beginning, we just traveled to see if we could work together. And that's when she took me to Copenhagen, and I did my first Bodysex workshop. Mm-hmm. And as I was sitting there, I was thinking, yeah, I know all these things, right? But there was something about sitting in a room with just women, nude, right? Because we're stripped of everything, and we're working on getting rid of our negative body image. And so we're being vulnerable, we're being accepted, we're being seen, we're being heard. Mm-hmm. And like this magical thing happened. And I'm like, what? Sisterhood, right? Because as women, we're always separated.
Yes.
We compete for men, which is stupid because they just want to have sex with both of us.
Basically, yeah.
I don't know why anyone does that. And you're never in an environment, like if you're trying to make it in tech or you're trying to make it in law, you're always surrounded by men.
Yes.
So it was like all of a sudden I'm with women and everyone's feeling the same way I am.
This is amazing. So now please tell everyone, because this is now part of your offering. One of the major offerings of Dodson and Ross is the Bodysex workshop. Tell people what a Bodysex workshop is and what the certification is.
Okay, so Bodysex, back in the 70s, feminism really, second wave feminism started by, they would have consciousness raising groups. So what they would do is get groups of women together and everyone was first person. So instead of giving people advice, you would just sit in a circle and you would say, I feel, I statement, I have trouble with this. I'm trying to do blah, blah, blah. And it was very powerful. And that's why the second wave had a real push. Betty got involved, and she was in a group with all the greats, Gloria Steinem, all of them. And she was like, this is great. I want to take it one step further. I want to do physical and sexual consciousness raising, because for her, she really saw that women weren't having orgasms. Like you said, all these women who said, oh, I've never had one, all these women who felt bad about their bodies, she's like, I see this as an issue, and I want to address it. So when she first started doing them, the feminists thought she was crazy because she's like, I think it's important that everyone is nude because that's the biggest fear, right? Our biggest fear is that someone's going to see us naked and laugh, or see us naked, you know what I mean?
Yes, and judge, exactly. So the academic feminists are like, this woman is crazy, and she's like,
Yeah.
and Betty Dodson's like, I'm going to do it. I think it's important for us to be nude, and important for us to pleasure ourselves in front of each other. I mean, this is really radical at the time, and still radical today.
Well, you know, Betty, as she got her divorce, and in the 70s when that whole sexual enlightenment was happening and the group sex thing was happening, Betty used to host the hottest orgies in New York City. She had celebrities there, Oscar award-winning actors. The FBI came knocking on her door because a very famous man who broke the Pentagon Papers used to come to her parties. It was this whole movement that by having casual sex and open sex, self-knowledge, right, that you would become enlightened. And what Betty saw was that women were faking.
Oh, they were faking with men, and that's when she wanted to have women-only events.
That's when she said, wait a second, I can take feminism and I can take group sex in this thing
and merge them. Okay.
And that's why, you know, her rule with the orgies is you come into the room and everyone's naked, so everyone's equal. And that's what she carried into Bodysex.
Okay, so now, please tell us about. So you're currently still offering these programs. How often, and what can someone expect if they attend one of the Dodson and Ross Bodysex workshops?
We do only do 6 a year, and we have heavy wait lists, but we get to everybody, and sometimes we'll start another group if there's too many. We do 3 in the spring, summer, and then 3 in the fall, winter, and it's usually 8 to 12 women. You come in naked. You share, how do you feel about your body and your orgasm? And that's when everyone really bonds, because what we realize is even the most beautiful woman in the room feels crappy about the way she looks. No one sits down and says, I feel great and I have great orgasms. No one. So we're bonded. And then we do a ritual called genital show and tell, because the number one issue we see as educators is genital shame. People think there's something wrong with their genitals. It doesn't look right. It doesn't look like porn, because we all know porn genitals are surgically enhanced. They cut the labia, they bleach the labia, they bleach the anus. And so, you know, you look at yourself and it's brown, or you have long labia and you go, oh, there's something wrong. So we do this ritual, genital show and tell, where each woman displays her vulva, and with all the other women. And that is the ultimate bonding moment, because you are showing your most vulnerable. You are at your most vulnerable in that moment. And that ritual started because the women created a lot of the rituals. Betty would get the women together, and then little things would happen. So it started when one of her neighbors said, I think there's something wrong. I would like everyone to look at me. I have long inner lips. I think I'm deformed. And everyone looked and said, wait a second.
That's
I have
how I
the
look,
same
right?
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why and that always is kind of the most profound. Even educators and therapists will say, I didn't think it was really going to hit me, but it did.
Amazing.
Because everyone looks different, but they're all beautiful.
So, okay, great. So we're getting there. So 8 to 12 women, 6 times a year. You're coming in naked. You're doing genital show and tell. What happens next?
Okay, so, and then we take women through some diagrams about their bodies so they can learn about the internal clitoris. So we have a very complicated and complex sexual organ that needs 20 to 40 minutes of direct clitoral stimulation to achieve orgasm. So for most women, they're not achieving orgasm because they're not stimulated long enough in the right way.
Okay, great.
Kinsey recorded the average for men as being like 2 to 4 minutes of thrusting. No.
And and if we're expecting to enjoy ourselves with those 2 to 4 minutes, it's like literally we're getting nothing.
No.
Okay, so 20 to 40 minutes of like manual stimulation in order for a woman to...
manual, it's clitoral stimulation.
Clitoral, direct clitoral stimulation. Okay, great. So then you're doing all the diagrams, and then what happens after that?
Okay, then everyone goes home, and that's a big day. And women will always come back the next day and say, wow, I slept like a baby. I was out.
Wow.
It's a lot to process. And then day 2 is more of a celebration. So we do another quick share, and then we show them, Betty has a technique, the rock and roll orgasm. So we show women how to penetrate their vagina and stimulate their clitoris at the same time so that they can have multiple orgasms and really reach those heights of pleasure.
Rolling orgasms. Okay, this is fabulous. All right, and so that's basically the second day. No, it sounds spectacular. Spectacular.
And then we finish with erotic, we don't finish it. We do erotic recess.
Mm-hmm. So
what that is I show them the techniques, and everyone has a vibrator, and they have one of our barbells, and they have almond oil, and then everyone sits down, lays down on their own towel, and we're in the circle, and we all stimulate ourselves to orgasm.
Amazing.
And the beautiful part about that is you could be trying to hold off, or you're nervous, or you're stressed, and if you hear a woman really having an orgasm, you pop off. Like
it's like laughter.
Orgasm.
It gets contagious.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Someone starts, and then it goes around the circle, and then there'll always be like laugh-gasms. There's always one that starts laughing, and I love it. It's playful. It's fun.
It sounds amazing. So now, okay.
We're
going to have you on again. We're running out of time. Oh my goodness. Okay. So Carlin. Okay. So now, how do people get certified to do this? Does it just attend and you're certified? How do people get certified so they can spread this circle around? Yeah.
Well, we have 50 women that have gone through it. So I just had this idea because someone did some research on the Bodysex effect. And Betty, doing it for 30 years, had a few thousand women come through. And I'm like, if we're going to really make a change, let's train other women.
Yes.
So the first step is you take a workshop to see if you can do it and if the work resonates with you. Then you take a second workshop with us. We break down everything and we do mock. We let them lead here and there. We have a reading list. They have to write their own personal sex essay so they get a good idea of their past, and they write what they want to do with body sex in their future, and everything is very open. It's about helping them along their journey because everyone has a little transformation that happens. And this weekend, we had 3 women running workshops.
Wonderful.
And
it's spreading. It's spreading. You've certified 50 and you can spread it. Now you're on WBAI. Listeners, please go to dodsonandross.com. So now let's get into some more stuff. I mean, we're going to have you on again. We're hitting the surface. Okay. So now, do you ever miss the law?
Sometimes I do. I miss putting on a suit and going to that courtroom and the good fight. I never liked the paperwork in the office.
Yeah.
But there's something about that real-time litigation thing where you have to think on your feet and you're judging the room and then you're making your motions. And there's something about it that when I'm older in a few years, I can see maybe doing some pro bono work again in the civil rights space.
Okay, good. You don't have to choose. You do not have to choose.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Now we need the tips. You wrote a book, How to Make a Girl Come. Please let our listeners know what is going on here. For women who are not orgasmic, what should they be doing? For men who are with women who they want their women to become more orgasmic, what are your tips for really heightening pleasure?
The number one thing, get a good lubricant. If you're using condoms, you have to do water-based, but if you're not, you get a nice, clean almond oil. Go to your health food store. Lube lubricant. Yes, your vaginal lubes, but it doesn't go up to your clit.
Okay.
And oil will increase sensitivity. So it's get some lube. Experiment with sex toys. Hands get tired. Tongues get tired. And keep it playful. Just relax. You're not going to have simultaneous orgasms every time. Get the pressure off, have fun, try things. Sometimes things don't work. Be able to have a little humor, a little fun.
Humor, fun, yes.
It's so serious all the time that it sucks all the fun out, and then, your orgasm is gone. And just be supportive of someone's orgasm. You don't have to give someone an orgasm. Sometimes it happens, but sometimes it doesn't, and that's okay. And,
no pressure. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Let's make sure that our listeners are reviewing this. So, one, make sure you're using enough and the right kinds of lubes. With condoms, you may not use an oil lubricant such as almond oil because it can degrade the condom. So you cannot use almond oil with condoms, but in any other circumstances, almond oil is phenomenal. If you're using condoms, a great water-based lubricant. You said 3, have fun. Joke around, laugh, don't take yourself so seriously. And then maybe 4, don't be so goal-orientated. It can happen, it may not happen, but just make sure you're enjoying the process. Anything else?
Exactly. And breathe. Don't forget to breathe. Orgasm travels on the breath. And engage your PC muscle. It's that muscle when you start and stop the flow of urine. If you start flexing that, men and women during sex, you're going to have more pleasure. You're going to get more blood into your sex organs. You're going to have more fun.
Okay. Wow. Very, very wonderful. I mean, I will give them a testimonial. I did a sex workshop with Betty. I gave it to myself as a birthday present just last Friday. Best experience of my life. Oh, my God. People.
Oh, good.
It was so wonderful. Oh, my God. It was like 4 hours with Betty. Oh, people. It was great.
She's
so Betty still does private sessions. You can go on the website. You can contact her about a private session. Email me if you want to know more information about the private sessions and what it entails. But it's kind of like the Bodysex workshop, except it's one-on-one. So it's like, it's such a shame what you're talking about in terms of sexuality being hidden these days. So I asked my mom, right, because she's Ghanaian, and Ghanaians used to have what they call rites of passage rituals. And I was reading a book about the PC muscles and how important it is for sexual health. And the book said that very often when African women gave birth, they would not let them leave the birth hut until they could hold a finger with their PC muscles. They could squeeze it tight. So I asked my mom, who's both a midwife and, a regular person who came of age in Ghana, and she said those rites of passage did not happen in her community anymore because they were replaced by Presbyterian confirmation.
Yeah.
A confirmation ceremony in a church with a white dress has absolutely nothing to do with what Betty and Carlin are doing. So that information is being lost. So to have a private session with an older woman in which you're looking at your body, you do the mirror work too, and you also get that point of perspective, because I mean, I don't think I've really seen anyone else's clitoris, but she's there like talking about like what it looks like, except it is amazing. I can only imagine how much even more interesting and spiritually uplifting it is when you're around all of these other women in a group of 8 to 10. So I'm giving a personal testimonial that their work is wonderful and will be life-changing. So listeners, I think that's a good segue into this question for you, Carlin. How can they keep in touch with you and your work?
Well, you can go to dotsonandross.com and just Google Betty Dodson, Carlin Ross. We're all over social media.
Spell your name for them, please.
It's CarlinRoss, and it's Betty, BettyDodson. So Google us. We're on YouTube. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We have our own site, and get in touch.
Sounds great to me. And I would also just add this, because we're going to go over the tips, because Carlin, I put on the WBAI website your book cover as the advertisement for the show. Okay. So, your book cover is very enticing. And so I'm hoping a lot of people will listen. But I would say this as well. I think with Betty, when I was in my session with her recently, she also described basically breaking the myth of female sexuality.
Yeah.
And the myth is this, that women are supposed to be having all of this fun during sexual intercourse with men, and that their penis is like the, magic stick that's going to bring you to ecstasy. She is of the opinion that is very far from the case in many cases. And so women really need to get better with masturbation and need to also bring in, vibrators and work more on direct sexual stimulation. So I'm going to add that to your list. So let's go through the list, because these listeners want to know. Let's make sure we remember. 1, making sure you're using lots of lubricant, almond oil if you're not using a condom, or water base if you're using a condom. So those are two important tips, but they're under lubrication. 3, making sure that you're happy, you're having fun, you're laughing about it, you're not taking yourself too seriously. Another tip, so I guess we'll call it 3, making sure that you are aware of the fact that it can happen, it may not happen, but the process is more fun. And then I'm going to say for women, also being open-minded and making sure that you recognize that masturbation and direct stimulation is key. Anything else you want to add before we let you leave?
No, and then work your PCs.
Work your PCs. Yes, that was another one. Work your PCs. There are yoni eggs for that. And there's also, Betty has a great vaginal barbell. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
I
on
forget what it was.
Amazon.
Maybe like $50 or something like that. But I remember my husband was like, oh, this was worth way more than $50. So men, buy it for your wives. Women, buy it for yourselves. Anyway, all right. Carlin, we're going to have you back. Sister, I love you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Love you too.
Bye for now.
Okay, bye.
This concludes How to Make It in the City. We are grateful for the expertise of attorney turned sex educator, Carlin Ross. Thanks so much for listening. I am your host, Ama Karikari-Yawson, Esquire, author of Sune's Gift and educator. I'd love to visit your school, corporation, or organization, so please feel free to contact me at AMA at WBAI.org. Again, AMA at WBAI.org. And you could also call me. My number is 347-886-2026. Again, 347-886-2026. Please also contact me to be a guest on the show. We are a community radio station, and we want to have you on. Please support the uplifting work of this show and station by going to www.wbai.org and becoming a WBAI buddy. Your monthly contribution of $10, $20, $30, or $100 a month will make all the difference for making sure that we continue our work. Please also go to www.wbai.org to listen to other episodes of this program. All right. Our other episodes are in the archive. Please tune in. Until next week, I'm wishing you all love, joy, health, peace, and prosperity. Be well, loved ones.